Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. I'm back today to talk about Herstoryathon, which is the month-long read-along that I am hosting to celebrate Women's History Month. In order to participate in Herstoryathon, you only really need to read one book, and that can be fiction or non-fiction, but it has to be about a woman who existed in the past. However, alongside that, we also have this little bingo card of prompts, 9 prompts that you can direct your reading, but you can take or leave this as you see fit. And today I thought I would do a little bit of a TBR of sorts, just books that I happen to own that I would quite like to get to during the course of March. Though this is not an exhaustive list of everything that I would want to read in March, there are definitely other books that are calling to me on this topic, but here is what I happen to have to hand. Order is just basically going through this pile and hoping for the best. So starting with the little books first, a couple of slimline books that I found in a charity shop, starting off with Life on the Golden Horn by Mary Wortley Montagu, which is part of the Penguin Great Journey series. Honestly, I know nothing about this. I just saw that it had the name Mary Wortley Montagu and I was like, ding, 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 that's the name I know. She was a very prominent 18th century female thinker and pioneer, particularly in bringing inoculation over to Britain. And in this book, this has her letters, which she sent to her friends about her time in Turkey in 1718. The back says Mary Wortley Montagu's journey across Europe to Constantinople allowed her to investigate the hidden lives of women, from elaborate dinners in exotic Turkish harems to the freedom of wearing a muslin veil. Her adventures exposed a reality never reported before. This will definitely hit for the letters, diaries and memoir prompt, and potentially might push me to read the fiction book A Woman of Opinion by Sean Lusk, which is about Mary Wortley Montagu, but particularly her relationship to her daughter, who to all extents and purposes found her very forthright, outspoken mother to be quite embarrassing. Another slimline Penguin book is A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by another Mary, but this time Mary Wollstonecraft. This is part of the Penguin Great Ideas series. Basically, I saw a bunch of them in a charity shop and just had to snatch them up. This is one that I have read before, but I thought would definitely work for the prompt of a controversial woman, because Mary Wollstonecraft was incredibly controversial for her opinions here. One that will work for the prompt of pre-1500s is The Lost Queen by Carol McGrath. You will see from a little pile that I have a penchant for English queens as well as writers, and here we have English queens being represented. This is Carol McGrath's recent book about Berengaria of Navarre and the journey that she had to undertake with her mother-in-law Eleanor of Aquitaine to reach Richard the Lionheart's camp. It's really interesting. This is kind of like Carol McGrath took a concept for a book that I had in my head. I always thought that the journey that Berengaria of Navarre and Eleanor of Aquitaine took, maybe, I don't know whether it was interesting, but can you imagine the conversations that these two women would have had? And I'm really keen to read this because Berengaria of Navarre is one of the English queens that we have really very little written evidence for, and therefore nobody has yet written like a big biography of her because there's just not that much to go on. And so really fiction, I think, is the only way that we are ever going to get a glimpse into this woman's life. This will be the first time for me reading Carol McGrath, and yeah, I'm really keen to read this. A historical fiction writer who I am very well versed in, I'll be continuing with her series, is Alison Weir, and I will be reading Mary the First Queen of Sorrows. This is the third and I presume final book in her Tudor Roses series, which started with Elizabeth of York, then went down the generation to her son Henry VIII, and is now going down to his daughter Mary the First. Guaranteed, if there is one book that I will have read for Herstoryathon, it's going to be this one. I have been very eagerly anticipating the paperback release of this. I'm just so fascinated to see what Alison Weir's take is on Mary. This is one that could definitely count for the controversial woman pick. Potentially later in her life, maybe the women's health one, because Mary the First was very sadly plagued by all sorts of health issues, actually throughout her life. So yeah, definitely going to be picking this up. One that will work for the translated prompt is The Reluctant Empress by Brigitte Hamann, a biography of Empress Elizabeth of Austria. This is a biography actually from the 1980s and is translated from the German, the translator being Ruth Hein. It was really interesting when Brittany suggested the translated prompt. I had to rack my brains and I realised that I actually hadn't read any translated women's history, but I did just happen to have this on my TBR, which is really fortuitous. I'm really glad that I will finally be reading something translated in time for Herstoryathon. I have a bit of a Bronte double whammy, a fiction and a non-fiction about about the life of Charlotte Bronte. So firstly, we have the invention of Charlotte Bronte, her last years and the scandal that made her by Graham Watson. I found this proof floating around in a charity shop and I thought, yes, I must have this. And then on a very, very similar tract, I have Charlotte by Martina Devlin. Both of these really, really intriguing because they are focusing on the last years of Charlotte Bronte's life, her marriage to Arthur Bell Nicholls, and Charlotte Bronte's shaping of the public consciousness about the Bronte sisters. This could definitely count for the over 30s club. For that prompt, I am particularly wanting everyone to look at a famous woman from history, but who didn't really get her start, who didn't really get her break until she was 30 and over. Charlotte Bronte definitely counts for this, considering that Jane Eyre was published when she was 31, I want to say. I guess it could also count for controversial woman because especially these years are seen as quite controversial in Bronte history. A lot of people seeing Charlotte Bronte as trying to diminish the work of Emily and Anne. And then the final book that I have on my physical TBR is Catherine the Great, A Portrait of a Woman by Robert K. Massey. This one is going to count for my friend's pick on the recommendation of Brittany over at Literally Smitten, who has been my previous co-host for Herstoryathon. I wanted to keep some of her Herstoryathon love alive because Catherine the Great is her favourite historical figure and this particular biography is her favourite, and so I wanted to pick this up. Potentially Brittany will also be reading this in March. That will be a reread for her, and I know a few other people had expressed interest in reading this, so you are very, very welcome. It's not an official buddy read, but do sound off in the comments below if you are planning on reading this one. And yeah, I know lots of bits and pieces about Catherine the Great's life, but I am very, very keen to read a full biography and get much more of the full picture. So there we go, those are all the books that I currently own that count for Herstoryathon. But obviously, you know, I am quite limited in what I have. I have a lot of queens and a lot of writers. Almost all of them are British. All of them, I believe, are European. So, you know, there's definitely scope for diversifying the kind of books that I read in March. And I'd definitely love to get any recommendations that you have down below of books that I should check out. We'll take any and all suggestions that you have. This is just what I happen to have on hand, but that does not mean that it is the limit of what I want to pick up in March. Do let me know if you've read any of the books I've spoken about today. Alternatively, please let me know what you are planning to read for Herstoryathon. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.